Bom dia, sejam bem-vindos a este webinar organizado pela AICEP, hoje dedicado à Suíça e ao comércio eletrónico de bens agroalimentares e vinhos neste mercado. A Suíça é um mercado de oportunidades para as empresas portuguesas, mas também um mercado complexo, com vários aspectos regulamentares e outros que importa conhecer. E é para nos falar deste mercado que temos connosco a delegada da AICEP na Suíça, Ana Maria Rosas. Vamos também ouvir Patrick Kessler, presidente da Handelsverband, a Associação de Comércio Suíço, uma associação de comerciantes que faz parte da organização suíça especializada em comércio eletrónico, que representa mais de 300 lojas online, a VSV Asvad. Felix Wenger, cofundador e administrador do winemaker.com, um marketplace suíço especializado em vinhos, que agora procura integrar produtos também de outros países. José Hansen, CEO e fundador da Upido, uma startup suíça especializada em inteligência artificial, logística e comércio eletrónico, e Carl Strohhammer, especialista em questões alfandegárias, com mais de 30 anos de experiência ao serviço da alfândega suíça. Antes de lhes passar a palavra aos nossos oradores, eu deixo apenas algumas notas. Este webinar vai durar aproximadamente 1h30. As câmaras e os microfones irão estar desligados ao longo das apresentações, mas no final haverá um período de perguntas e respostas. Podem e devem, ao longo de toda a sessão, ir colocando as vossas questões no chat público que se encontra no canto inferior esquerdo do vosso ecrã. Algumas apresentações serão em inglês, por isso eu cumprimento agora os nossos oradores também em inglês. Good morning, Ana Maria Rosas, Patrick Kessler, Felix Wenger, José Hansen and Carl Strohhammer. I just made a brief introduction about this webinar and some logistical remarks. It is really a pleasure to have you here. And now I give the floor to the director of AICEP in Switzerland, Ana Maria Rosas. Bom dia.
Bom dia. Bom dia, eu vou falar em português e vou começar já a apresentação, uma vez que eu vou fazer apenas uma parte introdutória. E nesta parte introdutória vou então tratar dos dados gerais sobre a Suíça, sobre o setor agroalimentar suíço, e daí vou apenas retirar algumas particularidades, e as relações comerciais Portugal-Suíça. Muda. Então, relativamente aos dados gerais, este primeiro slide pretende demonstrar ou começar exatamente por uma questão cultural, em que se evidencia a relação do homem e da natureza na Suíça, porque esta é uma relação de convivência que marca todo o ritmo de vida suíço e que depois se vai refletir também na importância que é dada ao setor agrícola e à paisagem transformada por essa agricultura. Relativamente a dados gerais, pois apenas para realçar que a Suíça tem uma população de cerca de 8,6 milhões de habitantes, que se organiza em cantões, são 26 cantões, e que se aglomeram em zonas de influência alemã, francesa, italiana e romãs, e que no seu conjunto constitui um dos países mais competitivos e bem-sucedidos do mundo. Peço desculpa. Com um PIB per capita de cerca de 77.407 euros, a Suíça é com certeza um foco apetecível para investimentos e exportações para quase todos os mercados do mundo. A balança comercial é excedentária, sendo que a Suíça importa essencialmente, como podemos ver, produtos químicos e farmacêuticos, maquinaria eletrónica, veículos e os alimentos, os alimentares, produtos alimentares. Passando agora então diretamente para o setor alimentar e algumas referências a particularidades. Vamos começar por uma referência ao setor agrícola. E para vos dizer que é talvez importante perceber que, entretanto, o setor agrícola representa 2,6% do total de emprego e 0,65% do produto interno bruto suíço, e que é um setor altamente subsidiado, como podem ver no quadro à vossa direita. Sendo que apenas 46% das receitas do setor vêm exatamente do mercado, bastante menos do que é a média da União Europeia. No setor agroalimentar, a Suíça importou por ano 3 a 3,8 milhões de toneladas de alimentos ao longo dos últimos 10 anos, o que corresponde a cerca de 50% dos alimentos consumidos. Nos últimos 5 anos, período de tempo a que se refere exatamente este slide, o comércio externo suíço de produtos agrícolas tem-se mantido relativamente estável. Em 2019, as importações mantiveram-se em 12,2 mil milhões de francos suíços, o mesmo que em 2018, e as exportações aumentaram minimamente 0,1% para os 9,5 mil milhões de francos. Em geral, a Suíça é 100% autossuficiente em produtos de origem animal e apenas produz 40% dos produtos de origem vegetal que consome. O parceiro comercial mais relevante no setor agroalimentar suíço é a União Europeia, onde são originários 74% das importações e destas 63% são originárias da Alemanha, da Itália e da França. Também as exportações suíças de produtos agrícolas se destinam em 60% a estes 3 mercados. Este slide pretende mostrar a relação importação-exportação dos principais grupos de produtos alimentares. Assim, a Suíça é excedentária quanto a produtos de café, cacau e açúcar, aqui designados de ganoso ou luxo, e produtos lácteos. Por outro lado, importa mais do que exporta em todos os outros segmentos alimentares, com clara evidência para as frutas, os óleos alimentares e oleaginosas, os cereais e preparados com cereais e os produtos de origem animal. Ao ler estes valores, temos de ter em atenção que alguns destes produtos são posteriormente transformados na Suíça. Quanto às relações comerciais Portugal-Suíça, evidencia-se uma relação saudável, crescente, em ambos os sentidos e que nem por isso foi muito afetada pelo ano complexo que tivemos de 2020. Portanto, a Covid, ou apesar da Covid, as trocas comerciais nos 2 sentidos, importação e exportação, cresceram. E esta é uma situação algo excepcional, nomeadamente excepcional perante os nossos 15 principais mercados. O comportamento das nossas exportações entre janeiro e fevereiro de 2021 não é, no entanto, positivo, mas ao longo de 2020 a Suíça ascendeu ao nosso 12º mercado de exportação. Especificamente quanto ao setor agroalimentar, as exportações portuguesas da Suíça em 2020 tiveram um comportamento francamente positivo, tendo aumentado 14,6%. Os vinhos aumentaram 6,4% e são o nosso segundo produto de exportação para a Suíça. O primeiro são veículos automóveis e o segundo são os nossos vinhos, que são realmente apreciados neste mercado. Podemos continuar. E agora um slide que fala por si, mas que eu vou tentar descodificar apresentando alguns valores. Portanto, nós selecionamos os 20 principais produtos alimentares de exportação para a Suíça para vos darmos a ideia da importância relativa de cada um. Assim, a exportação portuguesa de vinhos ascendeu em 2020 a cerca de 34 milhões de euros, cervejas 11 milhões, peixes congelados 6, águas 4, queijos e requeijão quase 4, 3,7, produtos de padaria e pastelaria 3,2 e café 3 milhões de euros. Podemos transmitir-vos a tabela que serviu de base para a preparação deste gráfico e, portanto, vou abster-me de continuar a citar estes valores. As maiores taxas de crescimento entre 2019 e 2020 verificaram-se quanto aos seguintes produtos: os peixes congelados, aliás, o peixe seco e salgado e fumado também, o café, o azeite, os produtos hortícolas conservados, as carnes de animais, sobretudo de espécie suína, os enchidos, os chocolates, os crustáceos e os sumos de fruta. Desejo-vos um excelente trabalho hoje de manhã e coloco-me à disposição para vos continuar a acompanhar sempre que vos for útil. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigada, Ana Maria Rosas. Eu recordo que esta apresentação e todos estes indicadores vão estar disponíveis para que possam também consultar mais tarde estas apresentações. And now we change to English because our guest is Patrick Kessler, and I will give the floor to Patrick Kessler, who will talk about especially e-commerce in Switzerland and the subject concerning e-commerce.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Isabel. It's a pleasure to be here again. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm looking forward to the next few minutes to talk about food and beverage in Switzerland. What will we talk about is the general market, food and beverage. I will really run through some figures. We don't read together the figures. You can read them yourself. I will talk about price level in Switzerland. What are the big merchants in Switzerland, the big names, the niche names. We do a deep dive in online food and wine in Switzerland. And to close with, we will present a solution which is really interesting, could be interesting for Portuguese winemakers as well. What is total retail in Switzerland? It's about 90 billion Swiss francs. It's close to about 80 billion euros. Food and beverage is about 30 billion Swiss francs. So let's talk about 1/3 is food and beverage of total retail in Switzerland. When we see the whole market, that the private household consumes about 7,600 Swiss francs a year for food and beverage. This is about 7,000 euro for your understanding. The most of the food is sold at conventional retail stores. We come to this point later. About 10% of food consumption is organic food. So organic is growing year to year. In Switzerland, it's an important market to sell, especially in the food department. It's really necessary to have an organic offer as well. So this is the percentage of beverage is 16% of the 100% is 16% spent on beverages, including alcoholic beverages, and 56% is fresh food. These are figures for various assortments. This is the comparison of the household spending, and there you see a household is spending, for example, for meat, 1,300 Swiss francs a year, for beverages, including alcoholic beverages, 1,200 Swiss francs. Probably interesting for you, we have a French-speaking part and a German-speaking part, and there are differences in food, but probably also in the wine selling market. In fish, you see French-speaking people are eating more fish than German-speaking, and probably there is a similar deviation in terms of wine consumption, local or foreign wine consumption. Then we have differences in family structure. So if you target to sell wine, you probably better target the families or the structures without children, because they spend much more than families with children. However, it's an interesting market in terms of wine consumption. number of point of sales in Switzerland was declining since 2000, since 2010. Let's say it's more or less stable. We have two big players in the market which cover all over Switzerland. And then we have some fine franchise food branches. I come to the names later on. But as you see, there is, let's say, a stagnation in terms of point of sales, whereas online food is growing. Let's talk about prices in Switzerland. I call it a price island within Europe. So you usually have high prices in Switzerland, and there is even a study coming from the EU showing that in terms of food, Switzerland is number one in terms of the price level. So we are, let's say, about 70% higher price level in terms of food costs than in Portugal. When we take alcoholic beverages, there is still a price difference about 30% compared with Portugal. So you probably can somehow imagine where we are in terms of prices. We will talk later, Mr. Strohhammer will talk later about customs and duties. So this is always an argument in the price discussion we have in Switzerland. So what are the biggest players in the Swiss market, the biggest retailers? I think this is important for you to know, to understand. There are two elephants in the market. Their name is Migros and Coop. Those are really the dominant players in the market. They dominate the food market. And then we have the food discounters such as Aldi and Lidl, you know, probably in Portugal as well. And we have a Swiss food discounter, which is Denner. And then we have some franchise formats which are playing, let's say, a minor role in the food market, but an important role in the whole coverage of Switzerland. What is interesting about the food or the food formats, there is one company, Migros, is not selling alcoholic beverages. So that's very important. That's historical issues. So they don't sell wines, they don't sell liquors. So if you want to sell wine, you don't have to approach Migros, which is one retailer less to get in touch with. But Coop, Aldi, and so on, they are selling alcoholic beverages, of course. Then when we have a hit list in terms of wine imports, which are the biggest, the most important importing companies in terms of wine. I don't know the most important in terms of fruit, etc. But in wine, it's Coop, Denner, etc. And there is an interesting company on rank 12, which is Real Casa Portuguesa, which is a B2B player offering a B2B wine and fruit and so on from Portugal to B2C retailers and gastronomical companies as well. So probably interesting for you to know that there is a specialized company doing this import thing and the distribution thing in Switzerland as well. When we go into wine, and that's a little bit the focus of the next slides, we have quite an important wine import. So we have about 150 million liters wine imported every year. 2/3 of it is red wine, 1/3 is white wine, which is about 2/3 of the total wine consumption in Switzerland. We have a lot of wine cellars in Switzerland. You see the quantity distribution here. So probably you don't have to care about the ones with the very low volumes. If you want to get into retail, so you care about the biggest one. And if you want to be on D2C, then we have probably a solution at the end of this presentation. How much do Swiss people drink? So I was really surprised. Every household is drinking about 60 liters of wine every year, which is quite impressive. We have about 4 million households in Switzerland. So if we break it down to every inhabitant, it would be still 30 liters of alcohol, of wine, including teenagers, babies, etc. So quite impressed about this figure. Where does the wine come from? There is a hit list again. You will see Portugal is ranked 4th. So there, of course, coming a lot of wine from Italy, France, Spain, etc. But Portugal is already at rank 4th. Now let's do a deep dive online food wine. What are the figures? Some number crunching again, and then I will try to focus on a potential market approach for you as a wine or food producer. So we have about 30 billion turnover, which is about 12 billion in euros in online. More important for you is that Swiss people, Swiss consumers buy abroad. So almost 20% of online consumption is done through foreign websites, which is already a good sign for you. And the online market is dramatically increasing. So last year we had an increase of about close to 30% in online consumption. So Swiss people are consuming online. Let's say the dark side of the medal, or the hint side of the medal, is food consumption online is still very low. It's only 3.5% of total food and near food. So this figure does not correspond with the figures at the beginning, because there is included near food, pet food, etc. But it's still very low, 3.5%, whereas in non-food we are close to 20% of online consumption. This is the development. Again, last year we had a huge increase, a jump in food online, as probably in other countries as well. Now, what is the food online shares of the three main assortments? So the green one, the 550 million turnover Swiss francs, is let's say the pure food consumption, the daily food. As you see, we have quite a high consumption in wine, which is the other third of the cake. And then, which is interesting as well, is that we have very high volume of coffee sold in Switzerland. So Nespresso, Dolce Gusto, etc. are really doing strong business in Switzerland. So you can also sell coffee online in Switzerland. Now, to do a short summary, there is still some potential in food online, and I'm sure we will have strong growth of a minimum of 10% year over year over the next years. We have two dominating food companies, and we have one dominating wine company in Switzerland, which is Cope, and then we have many other dealers. For you, important to know, and Mr. Wenger will talk about it later, you have quite high transactional logistical costs in Switzerland, so it's important to reduce your handling costs within Switzerland, so it's better to have importing structures where you don't have a lot of handling to do within Switzerland. What would I do if I would have to approach the market in Switzerland? And first of all, I want to talk about the food, not the beverage, the food market, which are the most important players. So if you're in the mass market, if you want to sell quantities, you probably have to go through Migros, Coop, and these names like Aldi, etc., which I have shown before. If you want to go through more specialized, organic, high price level food, you have names such as Globus, Mahler & Co., which do really online selling in Switzerland. If you want to be on the B2B market, so you want to have a distributor in Switzerland, you go through Transgourmet, which is a huge company doing international business. But you also have kind of Biopartner, Gebana, etc. as names you could think about. So if you have any question about those names, feel free to get in touch with me. If we're talking about wine market, there again, we have the mass market, we have the special niche market, we have the D2C, we have the B2B market. If you want to be in the mass market, you have probably to get in touch with those companies such as Coop, Denno. And if you want to be in the niche market, B2B, you have here some merchants such as Schwand of Flaschenpost, Delinat, which is a company focused on organic wine production. And we have here really an interesting Swiss company doing platform marketplaces for D2C, winemaker.com. And that's why I invited Felix Wenger to talk to you about winemaker.com as a potential solution to sell within Switzerland. They have a platform working for Switzerland so far, and they are increasing the market or developing market, Italy, etc. And it's really a nice story. And I thank you for your attention. I would like to hand over to Felix Wenger.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kessler. I think Mr. Wenger can turn on the camera, and now you are listening about the winemaker.com.
Yeah, thank you very much. I make that briefly, and it's really a pleasure that you have us here. Name is Felix Wenger. I'm presenting what you would call a startup. We started business 18 months ago, and I would give you just a short insight. If you are interested in the platform, just go to www.winemaker.com. You're going to find there a platform which is in 4 languages right now. And there is an English version, so you get a first-hand insight if you like. Patrick Kessler made a nice intro about market hurdles when it comes to Switzerland. I think there are 3 major hurdles. One is logistical effort and costs. You address that. The second has been addressed by Anna Maria in the beginning. We speak 4 languages. That means people expect in retail to read or listen to their own language. So that makes it a really super tiny, small market, which you have to approach with a very high effort when it comes to content. And thirdly, we will talk about that later, you have customs and import. There is a reason why only a few big ones do wine sales in Switzerland. What you can do is easily import bulk shipping, but when it gets tricky, and that is true across all of Europe, that's not a Swiss specific, it's about business to consumers. So if you want to send or ship wine to end consumers directly, and if you want to do that in a legal and compliant way, you have to have quite an effort to take. So I have 5 slides, just that you can control the blood sugar and how long you have to listen. What is direct to consumer? I think the best direct to consumer marketplace, maybe all is booking.com, where hotels can market directly their beds to the end consumer. But having said that, it is maybe an example how a direct to consumer marketplace can be a bit problematic if it is a asymmetric relationship between producer and consumer. What we try to do here for wine, and what we said live and are running like hell right now, is really offering a direct to consumer place where winemakers can market their products directly to the end consumer. And I think wine is an emotional product. Many portals, if they go online, focus on the price, and talking price, they focus on discount. So you always see here in Switzerland, Don Pasquale, 35% discount, really cheap, order it now. And we try to give a bit of a steer against that in putting the winemaker, his craftsmanship, his passion in the center, and really tell stories almost in an editorial style. So that is one thing. We want to allow winemakers who might be not the biggest ones. So if we go with the really big brands, they have quite a powerful marketing unit internally themselves. They might not use us, but there are many winemakers who do good products, who have medium size, and they can't afford or bring the effort of market their own products. I don't go in all the details. You can read it out or best try it out. But by today, we have about 180 Swiss wineries on the marketplace with about 2,000 bottles available. We are right now in the process to expand French and Italian producers. We started to produce that a month ago. We plan to go to Spain and yes, Portugal a little bit later, end of this year, early next year, and find out who is approachable for the idea. It's clear we are, I always say we are not in the wine business. We are in the online business. That's what we understand best. We are a team of very experienced online marketeers. So we did things like big banks like UBS, like Raiffeisen. We did big things like Miles and More and other portals, and just wanted to try it out here for the wine market and create some benefit. We learned that winemakers are passionate about their vineyards, about their wines. They do not like writing texts or try to look pretty for photos, so we take that burden off. We really try to offer high-end marketing and really use all the channels people need to use if you want to be available in the online space. So you need to use all the social media channels, which once in a year change even, or a new one comes to the block and an old kid disappears. And we need to be sure that Google understands us, can read us, and can find your products. There is one hurdle which is clear. If you want to create the logistic of sending bottles across Europe, and be it to Switzerland or be it to other European countries, you always have it's not a single market when it comes to wine, and you all know that better than I do. You have different taxes, you have consumption taxes in certain countries. The amounts are not always very high, or mostly they are very small, but the administrative burden to pay it and be sure that you do it in the right way, they are quite high. So there is a real hassle to bring the wines to the end consumer. Mr. Kessler has told you that Switzerland is a priced island, which is in a way funny because in wine it's almost the other way around. Swiss wines produced in Switzerland, in our opinion, are too cheap. So if you go to my platform, you have an average price of 19 Swiss francs per bottle, which is quite cheap. Whereas if you import good wines from Portugal, Spain, France, or Italy, you see almost double the prices as an average. The reason is clear, because logistics, admin, and customs make it quite a high effort to sell your products. Now, this is really something where computers can help. In many ways, computers are a hassle, but here they can help. If you have registered all your products in a platform ready to sell it online, you are quite well prepared to handle customs in an automated way without doing anything additional. And if you look at the lower third of that slide, you see if you do it in an automatic way and not in a manual way, only the logistics costs come down to 1/10. I just have the quotes we had for Import-Export Switzerland to EU. And you see that goes in a range from 150 Swiss francs per shipment of, let's say, if we boil it down to 12 bottles, and you can reduce that to 16 Swiss francs if you create bulk shipping from individual things. The way you do that is quite easy. You have to create a legal entity in Europe, and you have to have a legal entity in Switzerland, and then you have to create the bulk shipments that you pile up shippings during a week and only ship it once a week from A to B and then from B to the end consumer. That's how you do that. And because you have everything in your in your system. Customs is made in an automatic way, which lowers the costs dramatically. But this is an approach you can't afford to do vineyard per vineyard per vineyard. You need to do that as a country or as an industry or on such a platform as we do it. But it's just the secret is pooling orders across winemakers and handle it in an automated way. And that is something we could establish. So you see, it's more about, it's like a bit the Amazon case, you know, it's more about logistics than about books at the end of a day. And for us, it's more about logistics and marketing than about wine. How much we love wine is clear, you know, and why we do that. But I think just to sum this up, you know, why is this attractive to the winemakers, what we learned so far, and why do French and Italian winemakers now contact us and kind of volunteer to come on the platform is because we do offer them the onboarding. You might not believe it if a Swiss tells you, but it's free of cost, you know. So the platform is financed only by the margin of goods shipped around. The onboarding, the creating of marketing material, the logistics, the platform, and the 4 or 5 languages, that is created by us because we do that in the most efficient way. And if you look at it, you're going to find nice stories, nice people, nice pictures. It's really cool what is out there, and it's done in a professional way. I think it's not so much about competing winemakers from their direct to the vineyard sales. They will do that in the future as they do it today. But it really expands the reach of the individual winemaker, and it makes a bigger market affordable and available to winemakers who might be not financially strong enough to market their own products and create the logistics across whole Europe. So that is a bit of an insight. Just if you have a takeaway message for you, this is a direct-to-consumer marketplace. I think that is something very important if you are a producer, which allows you to pool your logistics, to pool your marketing, but stay in control of your product and stay in control of your prices while doing so. Thank you very much for having me, and back from Ibiza to Portugal or Bern or whatever.
Thank you very much, Mr. Winger, for this picture of the wine sector in Switzerland and your marketplace. And now I'll give the floor to Mr. Jose Hansen. We'll also talk about logistics and e-commerce and the importance of the last mile. Thank you for being here, Jose Hansen. The floor is yours.
Bon dia. I'm very pleased to join you all for this great event. Already lots of interesting information were provided to you, so I will try not to repeat myself. I just need to, can you put my slide so that I can move from, exactly, now I can control. Thank you so much. So basically, we are a startup focusing on providing delivery intelligence as a service in the last mile. Once you have overcome all the problems that were already mentioned by the previous speakers, you still have the last hurdle, which is to bring a great delivery experience to your consumers or to your business partners for the final delivery, because the final delivery can spoil totally not only the product if the bottles are broken, but simply the probability that people will buy again with you if there is any issue in terms of delivery delays, of items being lost somewhere, and your consumers become crazy while they are waiting for the products. So we are focusing on last mile analytics, predictive analytics, applying machine learning. I don't want to enter into these details, just to tell you that by so doing, we capture a lot of data, a lot of big data on what is being delivered in any country in the world, including Switzerland. And if we focus on the topic of today, wines and food. What is interesting in the data that we capture, that I wanted to show you to follow the consumers' behavior changes as a result of the pandemic, of the COVID-19, is that as in other countries, in Switzerland, if we see what postal and delivery companies are handling to their customers, we see, of course, an impact, a very big impact of the pandemic in terms of the volumes of parcels that have been handled both by the Swiss Post, but also by the competitors of the Swiss Post. And this means for you that today, in terms of final last mile delivery logistics, there are more and more alternatives in Switzerland. Switzerland has the best postal service in the world, according to the Universal Postal Union, which is good. That means that you can rely on a great postal service for the final delivery, but you have also increasingly other delivery companies that are taking a major role in the final B2C delivery, because all these companies like UPS, FedEx, basically DHL and UPS have been focusing a lot on B2B, but now they are shifting part of their activity to B2C, because it's where the future of e-commerce lies, basically. So you have this great number of alternatives for you to choose who is going to deliver the best last mile in your interest. And if we look more specifically to the evolution of Swiss consumers' patterns, what is very interesting is while Swiss consumers have indeed, like in other countries, moved towards more online shopping during the pandemic, it has been even more so for what we call e-grocery. So you can see here, comparing the white line and the orange curve, you can see that the orange curve, e-grocery, ordering your grocery online has exploded even more than buying your clothes or other stuff, electronics that you buy online. And this is also going hand in hand with the huge explosion that we can monitor in terms of ordering food, prepared food online, like pizzas, burgers, and other stuff that you order online. So Swiss people have really adopted new habits in terms of ordering groceries and also ordering food online, which are quite stable now. After the various lockdowns and periods of the pandemic, different waves of the pandemic, we can observe that this change in online consumption habit is even more stable for products like food and wines and meals compared to the other categories of online shopping, which is interesting for you because it means there is a great opportunity for you as a food and wine exporter to take advantage of this very quite stable shift in consumption behavior in Switzerland. Like in many other countries, the category food and wines is indeed the category that is more stable in terms of consumption behavior, almost everywhere in the world, we have to say. In terms of wine, during the pandemic, you can see here a big decrease. There was a big decrease in terms of online consumption of wine during the first part of the pandemic lockdown. I think people were less visiting their friends, relatives, and probably this has penalized, as decreased demand for wine online as well. But since then, since the end of the first lockdown in Switzerland, well, partial lockdown, there was not really a strict lockdown in Switzerland, it was a partial lockdown, but since then, there is a big recovery in orders of wine online as well, and now the demand for wine online is almost at the level of e-grocery in Switzerland. So wine product has been recovering quite well in the last months and weeks. So now, before we had the presentation of very nice platform D2C, indeed, it looks great. Congratulations to winemakers for this amazing job they did. In terms of logistics, I just want to give you an example. I'm not working for Swissport, just to highlight that since there is this competition now between delivery and postal companies in Switzerland, they will as well offer more and more opportunities to facilitate the import of wines into Switzerland. And for instance, Swissport has developed a specialized solution for wine shipments that they call vinologue. So one of the advantages of this approach is, of course, that here you can integrate with a top provider of logistics and postal services in the world. Swissport is indeed the best postal service in the world, so it must be underlined. So it's maybe an opportunity that you can also explore when exploring how to bring wine to Switzerland. But there are most likely other possibilities with DPD Group, with DHL, and I'm sure that the winemaker probably is integrating a number of these solutions in their own platform. So there is a future for a much better delivery experience, because you at the end you deliver more than just a product, than just food or just wine. You deliver an experience. Never forget about this, that you deliver an experience. And it's equally important to take care of this final delivery experience as it is to sell well your wine or food through a D2C platform or through other channels. It's critical to take care of the experience until the very last fit of this delivery process, until your consumers are getting their bottles of great Portuguese food in their at home in their hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Winger. And now we'll talk about another logistic question, some obstacles, some taxes, important things that companies should know before sell their products to Switzerland. I give the floor to Mr. Karl Stroheimer, and I remind the audience that you can send your questions in the chat. Thank you, Mr. Stroheimer, for being here. You can start your presentation.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It's okay now. Thank you.
Welcome from my side. I will present you some information in general about the customs if goods, in the special case food and wine, are imported from Portugal into Switzerland. The procedures, the tariff and the non-tariff measures. But I must say it's only a general view. I cannot mention too much details. The time is too short. For that, I think we have another event on the beginning of June, the 8th of June. We have another event, a webinar, and there we can go more into the details. Okay. My name is Karl Stroheimer. I'm a former officer of the Swiss Customs for more than 44 years, specialized in the customs tariffs, origin and non-tariff measures. And since 3 years now, I'm working as a consultant in a small company called ZFIB. We are a small team of experts to support companies in customs matters in general, and also to solve concrete problems. Some words you must know if you have to do with the Swiss Customs Administration, the Swiss Customs Law and the customs tariffs. We have some principles we should never forget. And the principle of the customs assessment is first the self-assessment principle. That would say that the goods transported through the border have to be declared in the principle of self assessment. And there is also a general obligation to declare all merchandise upon importation and exportation. That will say Switzerland is not a part of the European Customs Union, that every import and export is part of a customs procedure. Then, if you are exporting from Portugal to Switzerland, you make an export from the European Union to a third country with an own customs regulation. The mode of transportation, air, truck, rail, postal and courier traffic, has in principle no influence on the customs procedure and the duties. That the procedure and the duties are always the same. And also your customer in Switzerland, we have heard some information, business to business or business to consumer. Also, if your customer is a commercial company, a manufacturer, a trading company, a retail store, a restaurant or a hotel, for example, or a private person, all this has no influence on the customs procedure and the duties as well. In principle, there are, in details, could be differences, but the art of your customer in Switzerland has no influence on the customs procedure and the duties to pay. Who is subject to duty at the Swiss border? It's usually the party taking the goods across the Swiss border. It's usually called the carrier or transporter or shipping company or something else. And as well, too, at the importer, the recipient, the shipper, or the client. That could be also subject to duty. Then, if that's important, if something's go wrong, then the administration could go to the recipient and or the importer and to get the money to pay. Something important as well, the decisive point in time. The type, the quantity and the nature of the goods at the time they are declared to the Swiss Customs Office. That could be important because from Portugal, for example, to Switzerland, it's a long way. And for example, the weight could change during the transport, for example, fresh fruit and vegetables. And it's essential that the weight at the Swiss border, at the Swiss customs, is decisive for the duties and the regulations. Switzerland has an electronic customs declaration systems that will say that it's an obligation to use that. And the system is called IDEC. And IDEC is usually or normally used by the carriers, the transporters, or the big importers. And IDEC Web, that's open for all persons. Also a private person could use IDEC Web. For the IDEC, it's necessary to have an authorization from the Swiss Customs Administration. But we have heard from the other speakers that the import clearance is something important, and the system used for all these importations is IDEC. That's the electronic customs declaration system. Now to the customs tariff. The Swiss customs tariff is based as well, most customs tariffs worldwide and the combined nomenclature of the European Union on the harmonized system called HS. Perhaps you know this abbreviation. The harmonized system. And tools for the harmonized system, like the notes and the classifications opinions, are also used by the Swiss customs. And that helps you to find the correct classification. And now I want to show if that works. Now you should see on your screen the original enter side of the Swiss customs tariff called TARES. In the EU, it's called TARIC. Perhaps you know this system. And if you go in, and it's also possible to get an English version, and you can choose also the country. And you see the structure, if you know the customs tariff, that's exactly the same as the customs tariff of the European Union. We have 21 sections and then 97 chapters. For example, for you, important are the sections 1 to 4. For example, here we have the prepared foodstuff, chapter 16, the preparations of meat, etc. That's exactly the same structure as in the European Union. Also, the rules, the regulations to classify goods in the customs tariff are in the Swiss customs tariff are equal as for the combined nomenclature of and the tariff of the European Union. So if you have experience with that, it seems to be easy to find out the correct Swiss tariff number. And I want to show that with these examples. I have here the heading number 1806.10, that's for chocolate powder containing added sugar or sweetening matter. You see these 6 digits, the first 6 digits are the nomenclature of the harmonized system. This is in every customs tariff the same. And then from the 7th and 8th digits, these are the subheadings. For the Swiss customs tariff, it's the same. You see here, cocoa powder containing added sugar and sweetening matter. That's exactly the same text as in the harmonized system. And Switzerland has different subheadings. It's not the same if you compare that with the combined nomenclature of the European Union. That will also say, as I said, that if you know the harmonized system number, it's usually easy to find out the correct customs number in the importing country. In Switzerland, in the Swiss customs tariff, certain tariff numbers also require a three-digit statistical key. That is made to improve the significance of the results and the control of special flows of goods, for example, quotas. But this is the law, the structure of the law, and this the statistical key has no legal base. We say that's not included in the customs law, in the customs tariff law. But usually they are important, and I have here the example also in the chocolate heading number 180690. That's the harmonized system code, and Swiss subheading 33. And for that number, it's at the importation is required an additional statistical key. Here, for example, preparations for the manufacture of ice cream. Here, I think this is only a statistical reason for that there are no special regulations or taxes behind that. How can you get information from the Swiss customs? The Swiss Customs Administration gives you also binding tariff informations. I recommend you to use that if you want to be sure about the correct classification of a preparation, for example. And the Swiss Customs Administration gives binding tariff informations also to foreign companies. So you can ask also from Portugal for a binding tariff information. And there is also a contact desk of the Swiss Customs if you want to ask for general information about the Swiss Customs regulation. Now, something, a Swiss speciality, we say Switzerland has specific duty rates. Worldwide, there are mainly ad valorem duties, as that will say. The duty is on the value. But Switzerland has specific duty rates. And normally, it's the gross weight or the gross mass, we say. The gross weight, this will say that includes all envelopes, all packaging, carton for the transport. For processed agricultural products like biscuit, etc., from the European Union, there is the net mass, the effective weight or the net mass, the assessment base. And some products, for example, wine, there is per liter, and some others are per unit or per piece. But the most important one is the gross weight. That will say the duties are levied on the gross weight. That's really special in Switzerland. Now, some words we have heard, other speakers have said that the price level in Switzerland is very high. We say Switzerland is also a price island. And that one of the reasons is the agriculture policy of Switzerland. And in general, we have a high level of border protection for basic agricultural products produced in Switzerland. And the instruments are the customs duties and quota regulations. You can get the direct information in the TARES, for example, for duties in the quota, duties out of quota. That will say for all these measures, a correct classification in the customs tariff is essential. Without that, you can get no information about the border protection and what happens at the customs. And in the TARES, you can see the rates, you can see if there is a permit or a license necessary, and you can see also the quotas. I want to show some examples, but this is only general, I must say, because the details are often very tricky. But in general, there are some highly protected goods with quotas and high rates. One part are the vegetables and fruits, fresh, chilled or frozen, and that depends on the season. That's a regulation that depends on the season. Also, fresh fruit and vegetables are highly protected, but only fruit and vegetables usually produced in Switzerland. For example, oranges or bananas, there is not the high protection at the border. Another domain of high protected goods is meat and edible meat offal of beef, veal, swine, sheep, goats, horses, and poultry. And this is for fresh, chilled, frozen, salted, in brine, dried or smoked, and preparations like the sausages or preparations containing meat products. Also, there we have a high protection with quotas and high rates. Highly protected goods are also milk, butter, and eggs. As you see here, I have tried to show some example of products from Portugal. But these products are also produced in Switzerland, and the border protection is very, very high. High protection we have also for cereals and products of the milling industry like wheat flour. And now a more very interesting domain, I say moderately protected goods with moderate rates. There are meat of rabbits and game animals like wild boars, the sugar, and then very important processed agricultural products that will say chapter 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. There, for these kind of products, we say price compensation system, but no industrial protection. Olive oil is also very interesting, and for me also the wine. The wine in bottles is a duty rate of 50 francs per 100 kilo gross. Wine in bottles, 50 francs per 100 kilo gross. And behind that, there is also a quota, but the quota has never been fulfilled. We have a quota of 170 million liters. And we have seen that the import is about 150 and about 160 million liters. That will say the wine quota has never been fulfilled. And now the weekly protected goods with low rates and or duty-free in the framework of the free trade agreement between Switzerland and the European Union and the agricultural agreement between Switzerland and the European Union. And a very interesting product is cheese. Cheese from the European Union can be imported without duties. It's free. Also, fish and fish products, there are very, very low rates. Most of them are duty-free. Fresh or dried, or like here it is canned or tinned products. There are very, very low rates or duty-free. Also, duty-free can be imported all kinds of beer, spirits, and the vinegar. There are no duties, customs duties in the framework of the free trade agreement Switzerland-European Union. So I speak only from customs duties. But there are some special excise duties, like the spirit tax and the beer tax. For spirits, like this brandy, for example, there is a spirit tax or alcohol tax of 29 francs per liter of 100% alcohol. And there is a reduced tax, only 50% of that, from 14 francs and 50 cents per liter, for example, for Porto or Vermouth. And there is also a beer tax of 25 francs per hectoliter for normal and special beer. But I must say, these special excise duties are not border taxes. They are also levied on the production in Switzerland. Some words about the Swiss food law. Imported foodstuffs must comply with the requirements of Swiss foodstuff legislation. And I recommend you to check this on this link. I showed you that's another federal office in Switzerland. And perhaps a little difference, if you send your goods direct to a private person, this importations do not fall within the scope of the food law. But in general, we can say that the Swiss food law, there are not great difference to the law in the European Union. That will say, if you can sell a product in Europe, you can sell also in Switzerland. Perhaps you have heard the Cassis de Dijon principle. That's also used in Switzerland. But in special cases, there can be differences. Something important, the veterinary legislation. That's very easy for you. The conditions that apply to imports of goods of animal origin from Portugal are the same as those that apply to the movement of animals and goods within the European Union. That will say on the level of the veterinary legislation, Switzerland and the European Union are a kind of free trade, we say area, or we can say a kind of customs union, but only for the veterinary legislation. That will say if goods of animal origin are imported into Switzerland from the European Union, there is no border control. There is no control at the border. There is the same system of control like for movements within the European Union. This is my presentation. Now I'm curious for your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stroheimer. We saw that we have a quite complex regulation and legislation, depending of the products, but also the seasons and some other aspects. We still have about 15 minutes for some questions, and we already have some questions. The first question I will address to maybe you, Mr. Stroheimer, and also Ana Maria Rosas, because Tiago Caseiro asks about fresh fruits. What is the best option for fresh fruits and nuts, like cheese nuts or cherry in Switzerland? And I will connect this question to another one from Jorge Almeida, also about fresh fruits. And Jorge Almeida says, my questions are related with importation of fresh red fruits, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, and so on, and biological products to control pests and diseases, and the production systems used to produce vegetables and fruits. There is a potential market for this kind of fresh and biological products. What do you think? Maybe I will start for Ana Maria Rosas, and I will ask Mr. Stroheimer for the specification about the fresh fruits and red fruits in terms of regulation. You are muted.
Yeah, I am now. So yeah, maybe I'll speak in Portuguese, just answering my part. And ok, então para responder à questão dos frutos vermelhos e particularmente do mercado dos frutos vermelhos, nós temos tido várias empresas que nos têm contactado exatamente nesta área e temos preparado alguma informação de resposta sobre canais de distribuição, contactos especiais para esta área. E creio que é informação útil, portanto podemos muito rapidamente transmitir a informação. Basta eu depois ter acesso aos contactos específicos e farei chegar a informação. Por outro lado, eu acho que é muito relevante aquilo que o Sr. Stroheimer vai dizer relativamente a taxas, porque os frutos vermelhos são muito pressíveis, muito rapidamente pressíveis, e depois não podem esperar na alfândega por processos que se alongam porque a questão não foi bem tratada. E por isso deixaria para o Sr. Stroheimer responder à parte dele e estou completamente à vontade para enviar a informação útil para encontrarmos aqui canais de distribuição para os nossos produtos. Já agora eu tenho em cima da mesa framboesas que hoje fui buscar e que são espanholas. Como muito. Portanto, sim.
Muito obrigada.
Não portuguesas, como é óbvio. Obrigada.
Muito obrigada. And I will change to Mr. Stroheimer about red fruits and fresh fruits and taxes and regulations. What advices will you give to the Portuguese companies?
Yeah. Okay. In general, we can say that for the regulations concerning the plant protection, there is a good situation because this kind of regulation is the part of the agricultural agreement with Switzerland and the European Union, and at the border there is no control about that. That will say for the exportation of fresh fruit and vegetables are the same conditions as within the European Union. Concerning these non-tariff matters of, we say, plant protection. Perhaps I can show you if you, I want to. You see here, this is, you can get this directly from the TARES. This is the plant health and regulation.
We are not seeing yet, but you are consulting the TARES website, right?
Yeah, okay. You see here this page, plant health and plant specific.
No, we are not seeing. Maybe you can try to share your screen again, or you just can explain where
You
companies can access it.
You can see it now?
No. Something is happening, but we don't see the website right now. It's Teres website, right?
The Teres website, yes. Yeah. And also the duties and the periods for importing fruits, you can see directly in the Teres. Usually in winter, during winter season, the importation is free. And then when the production in Switzerland begins, there are quota regulations. And
so you have to pay attention to the
if
season.
there is enough production in Switzerland to fulfill the market, we say, then there are no more quotas with low rates. But that's also that it's directly visible in the Teres.
Okay, and companies should see the season and the specific product.
Exactly.
I have another question, and I think it's also for you, Mr. Thorheimer. Dulce Riadas asks, since January 2018, foreign companies selling products to Switzerland are required to charge Swiss VAT, register for VAT in Switzerland, and appoint a legal representative in the market whenever the annual cross-border turnover, and not only for the Swiss market, is more or equal 100,000 Swiss francs. Does this apply whether the Swiss customer is a company B2B or a private customer B2C, and regardless the channel, online or offline? Mr. Thorheimer,
Okay. I didn't mention the VAT, but the VAT is always levied on the importation. The customs takes always the VAT on the importation, and that one who is liable to duty has to pay that, and the final payer is not important for the Swiss customs, but the VAT, that's a very special case. But it's not necessary to have an address in Switzerland.
Maybe I can give the answer. Maybe I can give the answer to this question. I just put the link.
Can you turn your camera on also, Mr. Kessler?
There is a error message coming.
Okay, so you can
just hear me. So
we can hear you very well.
This question points to the special so-called mail order VAT regulation, and this regulation was, let's put it that way, was a Lex Amazon to have Amazon paying VAT at the entrance of the parcel into Switzerland. So to answer this question, for B2B business, this 100,000 Swiss francs limit does not is not important for you. But as soon as you start to send individual parcels to private consumers in Switzerland with a value under 65 Swiss francs, and you're realizing a turnover over 100,000 Swiss francs a year, you're obliged to apply for a VAT number in Switzerland. So it's a very special regulation. I put the link into the chat, so there you find the declaration or the explanation in English. And if you have any question on that, you can get in touch with me. By the way, Europe is introducing this one-stop shop in 2021, 1st of July. Switzerland is heading for a similar solution in terms of VAT declaration for platforms in about 1 or 2 years. Just a sidebar.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kessler, and thank you for share the link. The companies should see and maybe send some more questions if they have. We are almost running out of time, but we still have some questions. Antonio Tinoco asks a question also to Mr. Strohammer regarding B2C e-commerce, where consignments are generally of low value under 6,000 euros. I've heard that to take advantage of the custom preferences and pay reduced or zero duties, we just need to declare the EU origin of goods in the invoice, no need for a specific certificate of origin. Besides from declaring that in the invoice, do we need to do anything else? Mrs. Strohammer, you're muted. Can you turn on your microphone, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
As I mentioned, for a lot of products also in the chapters 1 to 24 are covered by a free trade agreement or the agricultural agreement. And there are lower duties, preferential duties, or duty-free for imports from the European Union. For example, for cheese. Mm-hmm. And to ask for this preferential treatment, it's necessary a proof of origin. And the formula EUR1, you know that perhaps, is always valuable. And up to 6,000 euros, it's sufficient declaration on the invoice. But we say an agreed exporter can use this declaration without value limitation. But for a preferential treatment, effectively, it's necessary to have a valid proof of origin, EUR1 or a declaration on the invoice. That's in general. But I think if an exporter has no experience with that, he should contact the customs administration in Portugal, because they are responsible to give information and advice to exporters to use this proof of origin or declaration of origin.
Okay.
But it's a very important document when you import goods into Switzerland. Then you have lower rates or you pay nothing. For
even if the origin is the European Union.
In the chapters 1 to 24. But some products, for example, milk or fresh meat, are not covered by these agreements, and there are no preferential duties.
Mm-hmm. So you have to check the product.
That depends also on the classification in the customs tariff. And then you can see directly, is there a preferential rate, yes or no? You can see it directly.
Thank you, Mr. Strohammer. Now we have another question about wine, and I'll address that to Ana Maria Rosas or Mr. Joseph Hansen, maybe. In general, because it is related to online sales, and in general, what is the online average price for a bottle of wine and Portuguese wine? What is the most online sold region from Portugal? Do you have any data on online port sales?
So thanks for the question. From what I was hearing in previous presentation from winemaker, I'm sorry, we refer to winemaker. Winemaker was explaining that the average price was 19 euros or 19 Swiss francs, if I remember well, on the platform. For the price of Portuguese wine, this would need to run some analytics, statistics on it. This allows me to tell you that we can answer this kind of question on demand, because this is the advantage of modern analytics to be able to approximate this kind of answer for this kind of question. So maybe we'll have an opportunity in the future to build more accurate statistics about this topic. So we keep it in mind for future possible meetings as well.
I don't know if Mr. Zwinger is still with us and would like to add something.
Maybe I can take over.
Yes,
I will bring in a link. The best way to find out what the prices are, you go on the website of Coop, check out the Portuguese wines, and then you see the prices there. So what is the price level of Fabelhaft, etc. I put it in the chat, and there you will find what the offer is right now. And you as experts, you probably can better get a feeling what the price levels are. So if you are interested in more wineries and more focused wineries on special wines, I can give you the names as well, and you simply check out it there. What I really don't know is that the quantity of port wines imported into Switzerland. I know that there are a lot of port lovers in Switzerland, but I have no idea what the quantities are, to be honest.
Okay. I can answer to the quantities because from our INE we have the quantities that we export to Switzerland, so we can check on the product and see the quantities, and the information can be sent afterwards to the company. And for the prices, I can tell you that there are completely different Portuguese wines and qualities here in Switzerland. So you have prices from 5 francs up to 40, 120, 150. You do have a very big range of products. Concerning the region, the area where the product comes from, of course you have Douro wines and Alentejo wines as the majority of them, but then you have everything else. You have from Setúbal, you have from Lisbon area, you have from the Viseu area, so down. You have from everywhere. You can find wines here in the region. We can work together to see exactly what is the information you need after this meeting and try to answer all your questions. But this is in general the information I can give you immediately.
Yes, in the chat we have all the contacts, and of course you can contact later to more specific information. Unfortunately, we are coming to the end of this session, but we still have time for one last question. Rui Alves asks, what is the best way to contact potential partners? We are a small distillery that produces internationally awarded gins, and we already sell to Switzerland throughout a trader. We are currently looking for a partner to sell our gin directly. My suggestion is contact, use the contact and get some more information, but I don't know if you would like to add something to...
Yeah, I already talked with this producer. He has a very high quality gins, and I think it will be a success when he enters the market because it's really very good. So I'm going on working with him and seeing what he already tried and did result, and what I can and where I can help him to fit in. But Mr. Kessler, I know he has a lot of information too, so we may work together. And this team that we are organizing this webinar from the Swiss point of view, we can work together to help these companies to get in the market. So, let's work.
And this team will be back very, very soon to some more information. We are unfortunately running out of time. It was a very interesting discussion, and thank you for your presentation and for all the relevant information for the Portuguese companies who want to invest or grow in Switzerland. Just a few words in Portuguese to say goodbye. Obrigada a todos pela vossa participação. A AICEP vai continuar a organizar webinars sobre diversos temas, setores e mercados. Já no próximo dia 8 de junho, eu recordo que haverá uma sessão com um dos nossos convidados de hoje, Carlos Stroheimer, que irá abordar com mais detalhe as questões alfandegárias implicadas na exportação para o mercado suíço. No final de junho, também José Hansen estará numa sessão sobre as questões logísticas associadas ao e-commerce na Europa, e nomeadamente a distribuição e a última etapa da entrega das encomendas, a chamada last mile. As inscrições vão abrir muito em breve, portanto, continuem atentos, disponham dos contactos e das apresentações que vão ser disponibilizadas online e continuem a acompanhar-nos em portugalexporta.pt. Muito obrigada e até breve.